I'm going to start right now. What it is, everybody. Thanks for joining me for this presentation. Not to oversell what's about to happen here, but we have a survivor of ritual abuse and a whistleblower who has information about child trafficking, who has information about about a murder as well, which we're going to get into, perhaps not even in this show. This is a first-time survivor who is, getting death threats. We're going to go into the pressure he's under right now. It took an incredible amount of bravery to do what's going to happen here today. So I'm just going to say this, and I'll say it once. As far as the chat goes, we're shining light on some things on this channel, and it invites a lot of darkness and attacks. So there are just a few things. The show isn't about Jews. I only mention that because we have a thing with people trolling us. I'm not Jewish. My guest isn't Jewish. We're not going to be talking about Jews. If you mention Jews in the chat, we're just going to ban you. My guest deserves your respect. If you insult the guest, you're going to get banned. Okay? It's okay to disagree. It's okay to disagree. It's not okay to insult or fight. So generally today, and if the chat's distracting for you, please just pay attention to what's going to happen on this show, because you're going to want to listen to this. And once you see what it's going to be, please share this with everyone. This is a survivor story, first time that's happening here on the air, okay? So I really want you to respect my guests and give them all the support you can while we go through this. There are a lot of risks that come with this. So, Michael, we already talked a little bit. I know you're really nervous, okay? Can you just start out by telling people why you contacted me, how we got here?
Yeah, I came across, I'll start by saying how I'm even aware of any of this. I kind of have an opposite relationship with this kind of information than most people. I only know anything about all the topics that you discuss because I've had to trace back what's been happening to me in my own life to try and figure out what's going on, and that's how I came across this information as opposed to, the opposite. So basically, when it's the elephant in the room is obviously your recent exposure of this issue and your guests that you've had and stuff like that. And I am really, it's inspiring in ways that might not be exactly the intent. So I wanted to reiterate that I think it's good that people like Isaac are coming out because it inspired me to get really sick of the kind of generalities and the philosophical musings about this are all well and good and all the information that we can share, but this is happening to real people, and it's not only happening 25 years ago, it's also happening right now. So I was inspired to reach out because of the integrity of which I think you've covered this, at least to my small understanding, and I wanted people to know that it's not only it's real and it's happening now and it's happening to me.
Okay, and I just remembered the night we first talked and what's been happening to you and what threat you're under as a result of what you've uncovered. And I'm trying to think. Tell me about what's going on with these circumstances, where you stand now as a result of what we're going to talk about today.
Yeah, obviously it'll all make a lot more sense when people have a greater understanding of what my crazy life has been like. And I am right now under the constant threat of death. I'm under the constant threat of, if I speak out, that I'll be killed. Obviously your viewers won't know this, but you have some understanding of what's been happening to me, which includes gang stalking, which includes constant threats, which includes the inability to uh, to survive it, normally. I've had everything like job randomly gone, house randomly gone, bank accounts have been randomly closed. Anything and everything that you've heard described as to how these people operate is happening to me currently. So in our conversations that your viewers aren't party to, I've been able to show you the situation that I'm in, and I think that it's going to be something that people are they're gonna this is something that, like, if you're interested in this and if you really want to help people that are going through this, the one missing piece that I keep seeing is that people that are going through it right now are too scared to talk about it. But if we can get some light and shine some light and get some exposure um, on it happening to someone specifically, like in real time, I think that could make somewhat of a difference. I hope it can.
I think it can. And just let everybody know, yeah, my guest is 31 years old. And most victims, survivors of what he's gone through don't speak out. I talked to David Schurter. He says most people don't speak out until they're about 40 years old or older. And the first night we talked, the same night, basically what my guest just said is he has no bank account right now, or his bank account was cleared out and closed. The house where he was living was robbed top to bottom. Your dog was killed at one point too, right? When did that happen?
That happened. That was one of the things that made it real. Obviously, because of my history with it, I always took it seriously. But that was basically my understanding of it, is that was the action that was taken to make sure that I'm paying attention.
Right.
That was towards the beginning of these threats, I'd say about 6 months ago. Actually, no, it'd probably have to be more like 8 months ago. And your viewers will be happy to know that all this stuff's been reported, and all these incidents have been brought to the police's attention. So when some people say that they're skeptical of the police's involvement, and they say it as if it's a metaphor or a simile to some other situation, every single thing that's happened to me has been reported to the police, including things since me and you have been talking. So if that goes to show people anything, there will be no it won't be hard to find that all this has been shared with the authorities and nothing has been done.
You are gonna have an easy time verifying a lot of things that you're going to be told today by Michael. Some of the things I was able to verify as much as I could. Some of the things we weren't able to look into because we don't want to alert anyone that we're looking into it. That's on this end. But we've looked at the history, and we've talked to Michael, and we're going to talk to you guys about character and everything else. And there's a lot of substantial information to what we're going to talk about today. What Michael mentioned is the first night after I met him, he doesn't have any money, hasn't eaten for a week. So we sent him a MoneyGram to pick up, and this was at night, around midnight, and I get a call from Michael, and an SUV had just rolled up on him, yelled out the window, "Are you Michael? Are you Michael?" and then peeled off. And I was worried he might not get home. And that same vehicle was parked outside of your apartment, right? And he did call the police, and then the vehicle left. And you report the vehicle's there. Is the vehicle there now?
No, but it has come back since, and like you're alluding to, we called the police that night that happened while I was in conversation with you, and there have been several cars that have done this similar thing, which have been reported. And often, questions would pop into my head with some of these people's stories as to be like, why didn't you take a picture of the plate or something like that? That was obviously my first instinct, and that has also been shared with the authorities. So I'm just, I guess I'm just kind of saying that, like, when people are suspicious of the authorities not taking action on this type of thing, once people understand the context, it's very real. I can't get help from anyone. Okay, like I've shared this story with the only people that are supposed to help you, and no one will help me, and I'm alienated, and we've accepted the fact that, like, not to be morbid or anything, but we've accepted the fact that me coming forward might carry very severe consequences. And luckily, you helped me be able to make arrangements for that, and we've made arrangements for that eventuality. But we've both accepted the possibility that this might carry very severe consequences, which has been demonstrated to me and specifically told to me as what will happen if I ever came forward.
Okay. Yeah. And you took care of over the last few days, the things you needed to take care of. You have a son. You have visitation, at least, even though part of the story is, the trouble you had with your ex, going off of them. So we maybe will get into that story today. But what were some of the preparations you made yesterday, just to tell people?
I had to make arrangements for my written and recorded testimony to be released upon the event of my untimely disappearance. I had to arrange for that to go to several sources, including you. I had to arrange for several things to be put into a safety deposit box. I had to make the arrangements on my life insurance. I had to obviously get my last will and testament and all that stuff taken care of, and every eventuality that I could try to take care of that would ensure that my story won't die with me.
Right. Well, it would, and I'd tell your story, but there's what really is meaningful is seeing you tell it yourself, and I'm just glad you made it. Every time I texted you, I didn't hear from you. I was worried I wouldn't hear from you. But we made it. We made it here. So you said this started about 8 months ago. We're going to get into that story at the end, but why don't you tell people basically what started the situation, or you think it started at the same time as what you discovered
here in Portland?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I upon researching what was going on with me, this is what I was alluding to at the beginning. I didn't have an understanding of these things that we now understand. I was involved, we're going to get into it, but I was involved in severe satanic ritual abuse when I was a child. We're going to get into that. So this was a familiar situation for me. And because of that familiarity, I was able to identify the fact that I uncovered people that were involved in it here in Portland. I was exposed to it via a group of friends that had brought me around particular individuals here in Portland that were participating in that. Upon my expression of disgust with the situation, it basically all started when I left a party without permission. At this kind of thing, apparently I had to have permission to leave this party that I was brought to by friends, and I didn't know where I was going. That's going to be something we'll get into, but that's what started it here in Portland. Essentially, I was made aware of people that were participating in sexual abuse and trafficking of children in the city of Portland, Oregon.
And just to let everybody know, so you can share this. This is we're going to be talking about Voodoo Donuts, and we're going to be linking this to Comet Pizza as well. So we're going to get into that in the second half of what we're talking about right now. So please share this and emphasize the importance of it. This is stuff that's mind-blowing for people who've looked into Pizzagate. There are people who've speculated before about Voodoo Donuts, and what you're talking about is being at the home of one of the owners. And this is a nationwide chain of donuts that a lot of people know about. So that's what we're going to get into in the second half of this show. I'm going to start recording. I should have done that earlier. I don't know if this stream could get shut down or anything. I'm recording this. Anybody who has a channel and thinks this is interesting, you're welcome to restream it at this time. We're going to get into this stuff about Voodoo Donuts and about trafficking that's going on right now in Portland, Oregon. Okay, let me ask you a few questions. Okay.
Yeah, shoot. Give me 1 second. I'm
Sure.
putting something over here.
Sure. I'm your host, Nathan Stoltman. Joshi played a big role in this too.
All right, go ahead.
Okay,
Shoot.
great. What's your name?
Michael Whalen.
And well, do you have any history with drug abuse?
No.
Do you have any history with alcohol abuse?
No.
Have you ever been diagnosed with a mental illness?
No.
And
I mean, unless you count anxiety, and I was presented with the opinion that I was depressed when I was going public with, not public, when I was going to therapy for things that had happened to me when I was a child. I was told that it causes severe depression. I do suffer from anxiety, if you want to call that a mental illness, but other than that, no.
I don't think most people would. Have you ever been institutionalized?
No.
Okay, never been locked up. How'd you do in school? Besides, I know you finished it pretty fast, and that you didn't like
disciplinary. I was a problem, but as far as academically, I did really, really good. I wanted to get out, so I was very motivated to not. I had a strong distrust for authority, and I didn't want to be there. So I would test out of my classes. I would try to do anything I could to not have to go to school. I had bad attendance, and so I basically was motivated to be really good academically via wanting to not be there.
Right. And what about employment after you got out of high school? You were in a rock. You can tell people what you did.
Yeah. I was a touring musician, and I was a touring audio engineer for the majority of my adult life. That's a whole nother story. But so I was certified Logic and Pro Tools, and I owned my own studio. So basically touring audio engineer and touring musician, then touring audio engineer. And then when I was going to have my son, I stopped touring and I opened my own studio, and I was hired on to a really good job. So yeah, I've been, the majority of my employment has been audio engineering, essentially.
Right. Stable work. And you recently were working as an audio engineer, and around the same time as your bank account was cleared out, around the same time as you got this notice on your door, you also suddenly lost your job, right?
Yeah, and I was told that I was told that these things were pressured to happen by several people, including that it was alluded to by the owner of the business that I worked for. I got a call one day saying my position no longer exists, and when I would press him for my last check or to ask why, there was someone that came to my work and threatened me while I was on the job that was documented, and right after that happened, I no longer had a job. It no longer existed, and it's been extremely difficult for me to get any kind of answers about it. It also seems that there's been pressure to other people that I worked with to not have any contact with me. So I've been able to glean that people have been pressuring them through some of the girls that I worked with that were willing to tell me what's going on, and some of the friends that I thought were closer in trying to get an explanation as to why I'd been cut off from everybody. So it seems like it was a calculated effort to clear everything out at once, essentially. And there's no explanation. There are tenant laws that protect you in Oregon that are supposed to be protecting me, and including me reaching out to this tenant representative group here in Portland that's supposed to be an activist group that protects tenants and on behalf of them comes forward. And they were extremely supportive of me when I told them that I was getting taken out of my house for no reason, and they couldn't back it up, and giving them the case number and showing them that there was no legal eviction or anything like that. They were extremely supportive of me until a week later when they just ceased contact with me. So, you know, and even sitting in the courtroom, like when I tried to get some answers onto why my place was being taken from me, the entire courtroom was cleared. Certain people went to talk to the judge that I was not privy to who they were or why, and the decision was handed out that I just had to leave the premises. So I'm technically not even evicted. What I'm being threatened with is contempt of court. That's it. If I don't leave, I've been demanded to leave, and that's all. It wasn't because of any other reasons, really.
And you got a notice on your door. I don't know if you can show it with by hiding your address or anything.
Yeah. Let me get that.
I've seen this already. Like I said, just share it out there. We're not going to worry for sure about how many people are tuned in, but the more people see it, the safer.
This is the kind of thing that it's said that it's a notice of restitution non-compliance with court agreement.
How weird is that?
It's a notice saying that I have to be out by this time or I'm in contempt of court, and I'll be the sheriff will physically remove me, is what it tells me. You have to do this by 4 p.m. And I don't know if you can read that right there. It says the sheriff will not physically remove you before this time. If you do not do that, you will be physically removed by the sheriff. So that's this. And when asked to try and get this explained to me, no one will explain it to me. No one will explain to me how I became in contempt of court without ever having been evicted.
And just so everybody knows, it's August 6th on there. August 6th. So this is the situation I was in when Michael reached out to me. No money, no car, no job, nothing in the bank, and has to leave his apartment by the 6th. And this is without killing him, this is the most that you could do, basically.
The threats that I get, like, people are right when they think that, like, what they want to do is alienate you from everybody, and the discrediting, that's gonna come. Everybody knows that's the next step. But what they do is they alienate you and they get you alone. Now I'm present of mind enough because of what's happened to me as a kid to be able to listen when I'm being threatened and be able to take these things and try to analyze them. And it's not hard to decipher what they're trying to get you to do. They're trying to get you to do their dirty work for them. They're trying to get you to kill yourself. They'll take everything from you and they'll alienate you. And if you believe their threats of death, you'll be scared enough to not be able to dig yourself out of the hole. And eventually, it's happening to me. Like, I will be on the street after that day. And that, how much of an easy target is that? How long before I fade out of contact with people and nobody will even wonder where I went because the situation will get so bad. And if you trace it back and you don't speak out and you don't talk about what's happening to you, this is how they get the leverage. This is how they're able to make somebody organically disappear. Oh, whatever happened to him? And, if you don't speak out when this kind of thing is happening to you, like it's happened to so many people, you'll just disappear. You'll end up killing yourself because you can't live with it anymore, of which I'm not suicidal. I just like to put that on the record. And, you'll just vanish, or they could snatch you up when there's nobody to complain. Like, if somebody's on the street, who's going to complain that they're not there anymore?
Right. And it's hard to listen to the story too. All right. So let's go back in time then, and talk about what happened to you when you were a child. How did the abuse start? Tell us about.
So, yeah, I have a little bit of I've only ever looked into other survivors' accounts. I'd never heard of the two wonderful people that you interviewed that have been monumental to me. Their advice has been just, it's moving to me because I've been where they've been, okay? but I didn't know about this stuff until trying to figure out what happened to me. And it's different for me because my memories are clear as a bell. I never had to pull any of these memories out of like regression or anything like that. What happened is when I was young, about 4 or 5, a person was introduced to me in my life as a stepdad type figure. He basically he engineered a way to be the disciplinarian of the household. And the way that it started is, if I got in trouble at school, he would ask my mom and my half sister, which is my mom's daughter from another guy, to just leave the house, and he would have his way with me. And the abuse started. It started with violence first, and then sexual, and then it came to a point where it was happening every day, and this went on for years. And eventually, when I finally was able to speak out to people at my school or whatever, there was scars on my back from the hangers that I'd be whipped with, like it was wire hangers that was used, and it would be under the guise of discipline for school. Like I was supposed to be under punishment, and the punishment was just extremely severe. So there was sexual abuse that followed the discipline, and I didn't understand what was happening to me. I grew into the understanding of what was happening to me. I was then taken places by this person. And another thing that I thought would be valuable to your listeners is that this is not just Hollywood. I'm not here to blow the whistle on any politicians or any Hollywood types. There's going to be some musicians that we'll talk about that will be familiar to your listeners at some other time. But these are just, this happens at the ground level first. These are parents surrendering their kids to satanic cults to abuse them, and it's very real. And what happened to me is I was taken by this person who had sexually and violently abused me to be violently sexually abused by others at gatherings of which your listeners will be familiar with, including being shown other children being sexually and violently abused, including having to participate in I can only describe them as the hunts that they do, where they chase us and you have to run from them, during which all of my memories are very clear as to where I was brought and what was happening to me, but at which point I would be drugged. And then, so a lot of the violence and a lot of the sexual abuse and a lot of the participation is the parts of it that are a little hazier than the rest of it. But as far as going there and leaving, being taken there and leaving, it's all like it happened yesterday, including large portions of the violent and sexual abuse. But we would be drugged. I don't know if that's just the preference of the people that I was with, or if any other survivors can corroborate that type of thing happened to them. I haven't really looked into that, but that's what would happen to us. And I met several kids of which I would have to think are dead, and I met several kids that every single one of them I would never see again. And I would also be told by other kids that they had been killed or wouldn't be around anymore. So there's going to be maybe that's one of the things that maybe your people can help with, is trying to track down some of these people. When I finally got older and I went to people to tell them about it, it's my understanding that my account of my abuse was so credible that the person, my abuser, fled the country. That's my understanding of what happened with this perpetrator. I'm very interested in where he may or may not be. And this is abuse that went on for years, and the circumstances would be familiar to your listeners. I don't know how detailed you want me to get.
Well, no. What I was going to ask is, you said what you want to give the name, right? I mean, we're wondering where this person might be, and it's not fantasy. You basically went to the authorities, and he was under investigation. Is that right? And then he fled. Is that right?
That's my understanding. My understanding is that he was facing it was also brought to my attention that he was also abusing my half sister, of whom abused me in far less severe ways when I was younger. Only in my adulthood have I been able to understand why she might have been abusive to me. I now understand that she was being abused herself, and um, I've never gotten, I would love to see her come forward at some time, but it's not my right to do that for her. But our abuser, his name was Michael Kohler, and that's Kohler, and he, to my knowledge, fled to China. I haven't been able to figure out anything with him, but um, it involved going to very rich people's houses up in the Scottsdale Hills. I've given my account to Nathan in great detail, which I understand is going to be a step that I'll be sharing. I think that I'll probably give some written testimony to him to share. I don't personally want to have a presence as like, let's say, like Isaac is doing. Like, he has a very interactive presence. I don't necessarily think that I'm emotionally and spiritually prepared for that kind of interaction. So I'm assuming that depending on what your listeners want and how this goes, I'll give you a full written account of everything, and you can share that. But yeah, let me answer any
Sure.
questions that you've
So
got.
this happened. People want to know because it could still be going on right now, right? Is this happened in the Phoenix area?
Yeah,
And
Phoenix, Arizona. Yeah.
yeah, you should start vaping. By the way.
Yeah, I know. I told you last night that I miss my
Oh,
vape,
that's
and
right. That's right. We got to get you one.
I
Maybe
could
after this
afford
show.
I could afford $4, but I couldn't afford a new charger.
Yeah. Well, maybe after this show things will turn around for you. We'll see. I hope there are a lot of people out there that realize what's going on right now. So you know what I found. Tell us about the first time you got taken to one of these parties. What your memories are of that.
Yeah, okay. So I was woken up by Michael Kohler. I was so scared of him. Like, one of the ways that this ended up getting out is my mom had a guest over at the house, and when Michael told me to brush my teeth one night, I pissed myself in front of this guest, and this guest wanted to know why I was pissing myself so scared of this man. Um, that's just an ancillary event of one of the reasons why I was able to eventually talk to some counselors at my school and get him into some kind of trouble. You have to understand, I was a young kid during this, so I'm not privy to exactly what happened to him. I've only been told by relatives that is what occurred, and I know that he disappeared out of my life at that point. But so I was woken up by him. He took me into the car. I remember driving for a very long time. And I remember being aware of where we were going. It was, we weren't wealthy. We were very poor. So it was all very impressive to me when we went up into the hills of Scottsdale, and it's a place in the greater Phoenix area that's a little more wealthy. And we were taken down. We were presented with a gate, a very large gate, and I remember being really impressed by it. I thought it was really cool. I didn't know what was happening to me. The first time, I was very excited about what was happening. I was told that I was getting rewarded, and that what was going to happen to me was very, very special. Um, I remember being super impressed by the gate because it was a mechanical gate, and I remember going up a very, very long drive to the biggest house I'd ever seen. It was like it was an amusement park. Like, to me, I was so excited to go to this place. And so when we were ushered inside by some greeters that would take people inside, I saw all the adults in the grand area that were, drinking champagne glasses, whatever, what have you, having like a party type thing. And I was taken to a room where there were other children, and the room was set up for children. And I remember like, it was only later in subsequent events where I would meet and try to have relationships with some of the kids. I remember, trying to talk to one of the kids, and I remember being scared of all the other kids because they were really standoffish, and I didn't know why. They didn't seem happy to be there like I was. There was only like one other kid that was happy to be there, and I remember trying to talk to him because I felt comfortable talking to him because I was scared of these other kids. I didn't know why they didn't want to talk to me. And subsequent events later, there would be conversations where I'd be told what happened to certain kids and you know, why these kids were not happy to be there once I had an understanding of what was going to happen to us. But um, the first time I was then brought out into where the ritual was to take place, at which point we had been given like ice cream that I'm assuming was to drug us because everything goes after that. But certain times it was less, I was more able to retain all the memories of what would happen to me later. But during that time, um, that's the first time that I was sexually assaulted by a large group of people. It's the scene that your listeners will be familiar with. It's real. Like they take it seriously. They actually believe this garbage, and they find some kind of power out of abusing children, and they think that it gives them power. And I was so convinced that I was so special for what was going to be happening to me, that what they were doing to me was a privilege to me. Like I should be thankful for what they were doing to me. And at which point, you know, at which point they would viciously assault us and take everything from us. Like, you know, they're trying to eat our souls is how I described it when I was a kid. When I was doing art therapy is apparently what I would say. And it's the scene that they'd all be familiar with. It's the scene where like these people are in their garb, and they are dressing up and playing their little games. And this happened to me several times, of which the hunts that I've described to you were less frequent. And because of the way that I was able to expose this guy, I think that I probably got off a lot easier than a lot of the people you talk to. There was a time in my life where I thought that I was the most unlucky person in the world and no one could have had it worse than me. But in hearing the accounts of some of the people that you talk to, I think that I'm one of the lucky ones. I mean, I know I am just to be alive, but just the fact that I wasn't exposed to this for lengths of time like David, and it's just I'm counting my blessings at this point for only being exposed to it for the period of 5 years or whatever. But that's how long it went on, and I was involved in the hunting party situations only a handful of times, and I was only brought to this place special occasions. It would be like a couple times a year, but during that time the abuse continued in my home life and ramped up in severity. So I was dealing with it on different fronts, and I only have an understanding of it being satanic ritual abuse when I went back and tried to figure out what it was that happened to me when I was a kid.
Right, and you're talking about, when you talk about people dressed up and everything, you're talking about people in robes, eyes
Yeah,
wide
with
shut, kind of stuff.
ceremonial formations of people in a grand hall. There's different locations. So at one location there was like a piano, and there was like a landing up top. So it was very different. There was like there was a point where there was masks involved in one of them, like you might see from like that Kubrick movie type scenario. But this was the very first time that you're talking about. It was just ceremonial garb, reading incantations with candles and all kinds of things that I thought were impressive at the time. The fear was setting in at that point. I can remember it vividly. But they were continuing to tell me how special I was and how what was going to happen to me was very, very special, and I should be thankful. And it was always presented to me during these situations as a blessing, as a gift to me. But the abuse that I suffered at home from him was the opposite. Now, I don't. My understanding of how he got involved in this was he was some sort of there was some sort of link to academia, because when I was taken by my mother to a college function, I remember seeing what could only I was a child at the time, so I couldn't tell you. I remember seeing someone in a position of great authority at this college, and I remember seeing him there the very first night I was taken anywhere, and he said hello to me, and I spoke directly to him, and I remembered him because the last time I saw him, we were in a crowd of 1,000 people, and he was on a podium, and I've had a hard time trying to figure out how um, how this guy who abused me would get connected with people like that. But when you look into it now, especially with the things that I'm dealing with here, you just find out that the link is that they traffic children, and the link is that they abuse kids. It's their currency.
Right. And people want to know a little bit more about Michael Kohler. He was a teacher, is that right?
That's what I think. Yeah.
And do you know more about him, like what he might be doing? Was he military or ex-government or anything? Do you remember?
No, and I should include that as well. What I told you about. There was one time where he took me to a place to be evaluated, and this is the only time anything like this ever happened to me. I wasn't a part of a group of kids that were groomed or anything like that, but I was taken to a facility of which is not in my medical records. Nobody can account for why I was taken there, but I was taken to a large facility, and I was analyzed by people in a room with, this is when I was a little bit older, with a two-sided mirror, and I was shown disturbing imagery, and I was asked to account for all kinds of weird psychological questions, and I've looked back to see if this is part of some kind of, like, I only got involved in therapy after I had told people that I was being sexually abused, but there was a time that I was evaluated, and it's not in my medical records, and it's not anywhere. But that would be the only attachment I can think that he would have to any kind of government, anything. But as far as him, I can't tell you a lot more about him. I've expressed to you that my mom was complicit in this abuse. So no one has been very forthcoming. The only way that I've gotten information is like my uncle that killed himself. He told me, a couple things that I couldn't really understand before he died, and that led me down a path of trying to figure out what had happened. And the only time I was able to get my half sister to say anything to me about him was that he was gone and that he went to China or somewhere, and that's what I was told about him, is that he fled the country based on my accusations.
And that's it. And that's the last thing you know.
That's the last thing I know
Okay.
about him.
Great. I'm getting some. Sorry, I'm getting some notes about how the chat's going. So let me try to set it so my mods say they can. I don't know, guys. You should be able to. You should be able to ban people. You should be able to. There shouldn't be any problem with that. So tell us about one of the hunts, if you could. What happened during these hunts? Because we've heard about them from Fiona. She said it's her favorite thing to do. Sarah Ruth Ashcraft has mentioned a hunt in cages. So just tell us what one of those was like.
Yeah, I was brought. This is the intensity was a lot more. I knew what was happening to me at this point, and essentially what occurred is we were brought to a large estate of some kind. And when I was brought outside, the demeanor was very different amongst everyone. The demeanor now was not that I was special. It was not that what was going to happen to me was a good thing. It was violence. So I was physically assaulted by several people before being brought out into a large clearing in the back and seeing other kids in cages, of which time I was placed in a cage. And then only then, after several hours of abuse, was I then given something. And we would be screamed at for hours on end. We would have to see the other kids being leaving the cages, and we'd hear them screaming, and we'd be told to listen to them. We'd be told to listen to them screaming, and then when it was our turn, we'd be released. And the two times that I would hide under bushes, including both times I'm pretty sure that I just slept, and I think that's the only reason I made it out of them. But I remember hearing all the other kids getting caught. I remember hearing their screams. I remember never seeing them again. I remember being escorted back after what seemed like I had been there for days, hiding under these leaves. And I remember being taken back during daylight. And I think that that's the only reason I might have been able to leave on the 2 times that that occurred. Now, there was a third time where it didn't go the way that the other ones went. It was different. Like I don't know if I was being if I wasn't being made to participate into it to the fullest extent, but that's the third time is the one I don't talk about as much because my memories are more vague of it because I think I was drugged earlier on. But it seems to me like I was only drugged after it was instilled enough fear in me to know that the point of this game was to run for my life, and the point of this game is that I would be killed if I got caught. It was very clear to me that that was what was happening, and there was no vagueness about it. There was no telling me I was special or that this was a gift to me. None of the kids that I ever participated in that with, I ever saw again, including the kid that I told you about that I made friends with. That's the last time I saw him. And Kyle, the kid that I told you about. And yeah, I mean, what do you if you need me to get into anything specific?
No. Thanks for getting through the story. That's all right. I think people have a general idea now about the kind of abuse you suffered. We know there's a person out there somewhere, Michael Kohler, but we don't know who. We don't know for sure where. Well, how old would he be right now? That'd be a good question.
He had to be in his late 20s, early 30s when he was doing this to me. So I'm 31. So 50s.
50s. Okay. What does he look like?
I think that I should send you a picture if I can get one.
Okay.
That's something I should do. But at the time, he wore circular framed glasses. He had shoulder length hair, like hippie hair type, and he always dressed very proper. And I remember him being tall, but I couldn't tell you. Because I ended up being super tall, and I've met people from my past that I remember being very tall, and I end up being taller than them. So I think it's because of the perspective of me being a kid, but I remember him being very tall. So I wouldn't be surprised if he was at least 6 feet, maybe taller. He had an average build. He's a white guy.
Okay, that's good.
No scars, no tattoos, like nothing like that.
Okay. Well, we don't want vigilante justice or anything. We're not suggesting that. It's just that, it's a real person out there.
Don't tell me what's going on in the chat. I can't handle it.
Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Everybody, yeah, you guys just ignore it. I'm sorry. Anyway. Okay. There's a whole section of your life when you were doing rock and roll or when you were being a musician that you learned some other things. We're going to actually shuffle past that and get to what's going on in Portland, what's going on with Voodoo Donuts. And I'll set the scene so we know where to start. You basically were living with your girlfriend, fiance, with your son in Las Vegas. She decided to move to Portland. You guys uprooted. She decided you were going to be a stay-at-home dad. And then she left you, and at the same time, you lost custody of your son. Inexplicably, she got full custody, and you didn't have a circle of friends or any support, but you can't leave the state because you would lose custody. And you got a job anyway, and then you started associating with people that led to what you're going to talk about, right?
Yeah, well, there was a time that I had to take care of my son by myself, but we'll skip that. So I made some friends based on like them knowing my past work with music and stuff like that. That seems to be how it goes, and some of those friends were through other acquaintances. Some of those friends were work friends through the ex, stuff like that. But basically, spider webbing out, friends leads to friends, and I was eventually invited to a party at what was to be later understood was the owner of Voodoo Donuts, Trey, and that at this party there was abuse of children going on. It's been I was an eyewitness to children being taken back into areas that were explained to me were areas where this was taking place. I expressed my dissatisfaction with the situation and that I wanted to leave, which led me to having people be very upset with that. But it's been told to me that my friends made excuses for me as to why I wanted to leave, and I only later would understand that this circle of friends was involved in this, especially some of the girls that I was meeting through this. And at first I was trying to keep the company of these group of friends, but I was continually brought around these same people, even though I was requesting not to be. So what seems to have happened is I was being kept close to this situation to try and see what I was going to do about it, if I was going to do anything. And I was confronted upon leaving that very first party. I was confronted by 3 people who were asking me why I wanted to leave, and they were very demanding that I didn't. I was actually forced to stay for a period of time while my friends went and tried to explain something to what I believe was the owner and several other people. Upon speaking more to these group of friends, it's been understood that they're involved a good portion of them were involved in this type of activity, including a woman named Julie, who we'll get into that. But this happens frequently with these people, and it's been explained to me that it's not uncommon, and that I was essentially being invited into participating in that. And when I expressed my dissatisfaction with that, I was immediately put on the radar of these people. That's when the death threats started. That's when that's when everything went ballistic in my life. That's when I started being followed. That's when I started being threatened. That's when I was physically accosted. That's when everything went upside down and I lost everything. And ever since then, it's only been intensifying, and speaking out has been something that I've been specifically told not to do, which is obviously the only thing that I can do.
Yeah, and as far as your connections, and maybe we'll get into this, Julie, too, where did it start? Were you already a little suspicious, or had you already found out a little bit about it?
No,
No, it just happened when you
no.
went to that party. Have you?
Yeah,
And you say it was Trey. This guy, his name is Trey. Do I have him up? I had the guys from Voodoo Donuts, by the way, is a
Trey Shannon. Yeah.
Trey Shannon. Is that right? And then did you go to the house of the other guy too?
Yeah, eventually at another time. Now, see, I was beginning, this is when I knew that my friends weren't actually my friends, is because I kept being brought around these people, and I would be told that I wasn't going to be brought around them. I would be like, okay, so we're going to hang out somewhere else, and it would end up being, I ended up being at a different house, and I was told that it was the owner of Voodoo Donuts house. And I was like, okay, but I've already been to the owner of Voodoo Donuts house. This is a different house. And then it was explained to me that it was a different owner. It's my understanding that it was this Frank, or not Frank, Pugson, what we discussed, it was the other owner's house. There's 2 owners apparently, and I was at the other owner's house. But another thing I wanted to tell you is that there was an art show. There was an art show that we were brought to, which had them attending it as well as many other people attending it. And it was the type of thing that I've now come to understand is very familiarly associated with these people. That is when I discovered, like, only after looking into that is when I discovered, like, the Pizzagate stuff. And then that's when I was made aware that 2 of these people apparently had worked at Comet, and they had, like, there's this woman who was built, like, her job out here was to build children's caskets. And I was confronted by her on 2 different occasions about my awareness of what this circle is participating in. Now, you got to understand, my reaction was not incognito. Like, I keep hearing about how people were able to witness this stuff and not react and not draw the suspicion and the attention of the people around. My reaction was the polar opposite. I immediately drew suspicion upon myself. I was immediately dissatisfied with the situation and being brought around these people and didn't want to be, but I was continually brought around them until the point where all those people disappeared from my life and I began receiving constant death threats and my life began to be turned completely upside down.
And this girl, Julie, so she worked at Comet, and then she worked with Voodoo, or was she actually employed by Voodoo?
She was just one of the people that was there. The girl I was telling you that was employed by Voodoo is a different girl, but this girl that I found out was from Washington, D.C., that worked at Comet or whatever. She was just one of the people at the party.
Okay.
The very first party that I left, and the second party she was at.
And sorry, and at those parties, okay, were there always children there, or was it just the one time that you were there? And
both times.
Both times.
Supposedly, both times, and we've been able to verify that at least the first house, so we know whose house that was. So at that house, so both times I was at an owner of Voodoo Donuts house. Both times there were children. Yeah,
let me see if I can pull up. Here. We looked at this picture. This is one of the owners of Voodoo Donuts. The other one, Kenneth Cat Daddy Pogson. Michael says he's been there to this house, and there were children there, and it was clear that there was child sex abuse happening there.
Absolutely.
And you say absolutely. That's because people told you? Or did you
Well, that's because it was my suspicion of what was going on because of my familiarity with it and me drawing suspicion to myself. Now, it was told to me as well. So there is my instincts about it, which can be doubted and can be whatever, but it's also been told to me specifically. Not only has it been told to me as secondhand, like, yes, that's what they do, but there's several conversations where it's been told to me by people that are admitting to participating in it.
Okay, and those people, you'd be able to name them. I don't know how many things to name today, to be honest, but there were people that told you, and you'd be able to tell authorities who those people were. And you have. Okay, that's the next question. What have you told the authorities about what you witnessed?
I've told the authorities about the full extent of it, because when they're asking why I feel like my life is under threat, if you don't have a good enough explanation for that, they want to know. So the officers' names and numbers that I gave you are the officers that I was in correspondence with. They're aware of everything that's happened to me, starting with my home being robbed, and then my dog dying and everything like that. And that's also the way, between me and you, that's also the way that I've been able to eliminate certain people from participating in it. Like, let's say, like, oh, people, like, you might think that, oh, it was just one of my friends who did this, or my ex, or whatever, blah, blah, blah. But the fact that I was in contact constantly throughout the entire thing with authorities is the way that I've been able to differentiate which groups are potentially involved and been able to rule out certain people being involved.
Did this person, Julie, admit to you that she was involved with child sex abuse?
Yes.
She did admit it and confronted you and told you not to talk about it?
Yes.
What's her full name? Do you know?
Yeah, it's no, I have to get it for you.
Okay.
So there's several other names that you'll need of other people that are close to her.
Okay. All right. Do you want to? When do you want to give those to me? You want to give them to me after the show, or what? What do you want?
Yeah, and I have to pull I have to get like the documents that I talked about needing to get.
Okay.
I have to get those. So I'd rather have it in a cohesive way to be able to present it to you. Having it maybe not all of it, but at least some of it at like once.
Okay.
Now, I was only able to verify her last name by asking my friends to have her social media and stuff like that. And so when I told you it was on that phone that got stolen from me, all that was compiled, I have to like get what I was able to re-get. So people need to understand that after I was like looking into this and after I was trying to figure out who these people were, I had everything compiled on a phone, like it was the only thing that I had where I could keep everything private to myself, and it was taken from me. So there is a portion of me being able to find out who a lot of these people were. That's I've been set back on it. You know, I've had my stuff stolen. I've had my records stolen out of that. So that has also been reported to the authorities. So, and it's also been told how important it is that I get it back because it has all this information in it. So there's going to be a great deal of which that is in there that maybe I shouldn't even mention since I no longer have the
device
stuff. Yeah.
Okay.
But,
so I can follow up after this. The reason I didn't before we did the show is hopefully obvious to people. I didn't want anybody to know that we were about to do this before it started, and we did our best to hide, our communications. But I can now follow up with those police officers and verify that you made those reports, right?
Right.
Yeah. And those reports, what did you tell them?
The extent of it, that I felt I was being targeted by a certain group of people. In conversations with the second officer that I was put towards, I did give him my suspicions as to why they might be targeting me. But more specifically, it was exactly what was taken from me, when it was taken, exactly what happened to me when it happened. Trying to get their help, trying to get them to help me, trying to get them to do anything for me. And so there was one cop that I was initially talking to, and then I was put to another one, and then they both ceased contact with me. They both ceased helping me in any way. So I need to give you those. But people also need to understand that with my life being constantly threatened, it's hard to know what to do, really. So I'm kind of just having faith, and I'm kind of just taking your lead on this.
Yeah, well, I think both of us, you felt like reaching out to me for some reason. I don't know if there was much choice. You're out of where you live in 2 days. And besides that, children are being trafficked right now, you say.
I do say, yeah, I absolutely am confident in that. And that is something that you think, I don't know. When Isaac makes the claim that somebody should have sued him, like when I reported this to the authorities, shouldn't something have happened to me if I was making these things up? Like, shouldn't somebody have come, to sue me or something like that? So it's like, it's not as high profile as his, but you would think that these kind of things wouldn't just be ignored.
Right, swept under the rug. Now, these guys run this Voodoo Donuts, you didn't know that they'd been implicated as maybe being child traffickers before.
I had no idea. That when you told me that was a very big surprise. And I'd given you some other names, and you also were able to tell me that some of those people had already been connected.
Yep. You gave me this. You told me that while you were doing your band thing, you knew that Ian Watkins was a pedo big time, and I did a search for him, and he's a convicted pedophile. You had no idea. You just knew it from experience.
Which happened years after my interactions with him, and I wasn't privy to that information. But I didn't know that I still have not seen anything that you tell me that people have connected Voodoo to other things. I would love that information. If anybody wants to come forward and give that to Nathan so he can give it to me, I would love to know that, because I haven't been able to find anything that connects any of it, and all of that could strengthen my ability to defend myself. So if anybody has any information that does corroborate what I'm saying, please give that to Nathan, because I haven't been able to find anything.
Okay, so my email address for anybody who wants to contact me is lifttheveil411@gmail.com. Unfortunately, because of what'll happen if his information gets out, I'm about decentralizing, but in this case, I'll have to filter the information. If you're interested,
if you think you let me know. I'm out there now, okay, and we've been dealing with how scared I've been before this, and I'm aware of what I'm doing and the consequences that I could be facing. If people have more confidence in sending something to me, I can give out an email. Whatever gives people the confidence to come forward. It's not about me anymore.
Yeah.
That's over now. It being about me is done. I hope that I can continue the fight, but it's not about me anymore. So if I can help anyone else, um, I'm willing to do that too. So if they want to send it to you, if they want to send it to me, if they want to start a thread somewhere that or something, I don't know how it works as well as you guys do, but you just let me know and we can move forward whichever way that you think will be the best.
Okay, well, I didn't think ahead enough to want to give out your information right now, so we'll think about that. And in the meantime, people can contact me, and I'll try to filter through it. I hope there are people out there. I mean, right now, Alex Jones is in Portland. I mean, would you want to get your story out in front of as many people as possible now that you've come forward? I mean, we have 2,000 people tuned in right now. At least 20,000, 30,000 people watch this video. I hope it's 100,000. I hope everybody shares this. It's just, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, it's explosive information. It has to do with child trafficking right now. And you mentioned to me, and this that there are other people out there who know this, who are being intimidated too, that might be willing to come out. Now, once they know that you've come out and you're not dead, do you think these people would be willing to maybe also say their piece?
Yes, and that's my hope, because I'm not under any illusions of, like, I know what I look like. I know that I'm a punk rocker, like, kid from scrappy past. Like, I know that some people aren't going to want to listen to somebody like me with tattoos everywhere and weird ears and stuff like that. But my hope is that if I can come forward, and the people who know exactly what I'm talking about, that are facing the threats like I am, and the people that aren't, you know who you are. This is your chance, okay? I'm talking to my friends here, my ex-friends, and you know who you are. Like, this, it can be put on me. I'm willing to shoulder that, okay? But now your chance is here to come out and make a difference, because we can change this. This isn't in the halls of power in Washington, D.C. This isn't something that we can't touch. This isn't in the hills of Hollywood, in Beverly Hills, with millions of miles and dollars in the way. We know exactly what's going on. You know exactly who you are that I'm talking to, and we can change this now. We can make a difference. I don't want it to be in vain. And if I can come forward, and he's telling me, someone who looks like me, someone who, who never wanted to be in this position, can have the bravery to come forward knowing what I'm facing, you can too. You 100% can. Okay? And he's offered me support and able to get things in order so that if something happens to me, I'm able to do things that were necessary. He's got people that he's saying support this cause. He's got people that listen. Okay? So there's just a chance, even if a quarter of the people that hear this care, that's a lot of people we could talk to. So my friends, my ex-friends, my acquaintances, people that didn't support me, you know who you are here, and we could change this. We could change it right now. Like he said, he's got people listening. So there's no excuse anymore. I hope that I can inspire them to come forward too.
Yeah, I hope so too. You coming forward, everybody can see what it took to do that. And I'll offer this too. All you have to do, if you're out there and you have evidence, or you even know that Voodoo is involved in child trafficking, it's kind of not new. People have been saying it, but you can see this is someone who's gone to the authorities, told them the whole story, and nothing's happened about it. I have a feeling there are people who say, "Oh yeah, everybody in Portland knows that." And nobody's been willing to speak out because of the power they seem to wield, because of what they're able to do to manipulate the courts and just use illegal gang stalking tactics. Now, all you have to do is, if you have a story, if you're one of his friends, if you don't want to contact me, if you're worried about it, is take a video yourself saying, what you know, and put it on YouTube, and then tell me about it, or tell Isaac Cappy about it, or tell Fiona Barnett about it, and that's totally decentralized. You have to worry about me, but and then what I'll do is if it's real testimony, I'll just show it on my channel, and then you'll have a lot of people see what you're doing, and like Michael said, so it won't be in vain. The one thing I wanted to make sure of is that a lot of people are tuned in to see this, that we were able to get through it live, and that these accusations could be aired out. And, whatever you think of Isaac Cappy, if without that, we wouldn't have gotten here. Is that safe to say, Michael?
Yeah, I think that I don't know any of the superfluous stuff that goes along with this. I know there's the controversy about people attacking because of Q and all this stuff, and none of that matters. If Isaac, I'm talking to you, Isaac, okay? If you mean what you say, help the people that are on the ground level of this happening, okay? Because it's not just Hollywood. It's not just politics. It has to start somewhere. These are people that are giving away their children to the same trafficking rings. These kids aren't famous when it happens to them. I wasn't famous when it happened to me. I was just a kid, okay? And it happens because people like this enable them. And people like this are the cogs in the machine that allow the politicians to prey on children and the Hollywood elites to prey on children just like anybody else. So Isaac, if you're listening to me, this is my survivor story, and we need help in this situation. This is real, and it's happening right now. And I know that the same thing is happening to you up there in Hollywood, and maybe some of those people are untouchable, but we're not. We're real people, and it's really happening to us. And it could be different. We could start here, and it could lead. It could be the kind of thing that gets us to where we need to be, to be able to have some substantial evidence behind our claims, to be able to maybe get some convictions, to be able to maybe, who knows, to maybe add some validity and make some movement on this. So if you mean what you say about supporting the people that this is happening to, I hope that I can count on your support.
God bless you for coming on. And Survivor Stories, this is it. This is the first, real Survivor story. And people out there who can do the same thing and that are afraid to because of the circumstances they find them under, or maybe some fraction of what you find yourself under. And you've come out under all of those circumstances and put your life on the line. And you have to worry about your son too, and so just know that I appreciate it, and the huge majority of people support you. Okay.
I hope so.
Yeah.
And it's not, this is just the tip of the iceberg, guys. There's so much more. Nathan, he's not taking this lightly. Okay. And I'm so glad that I had someone that I felt I could reach out to. I tried to explain it to him as it's just one of those things. I'm an audio engineer, so maybe this is nerdy or whatever, but everything in my life has always been about frequencies and vibrations. If you break it down, I've been about music my whole life, and it's the only thing that's ever made sense to me. And when I saw what he was doing, regardless of what you think about the other aspects of it, even if it was motivated more like mine was, where I was sick and tired of the people knowing how this works on the ground level, those people not speaking out, even if that's the kind of inspiration you're saying, a corollary inspiration of saying, no, I'm sick of this, and that's going to inspire me to come forward. I felt like the vibrations were right, and I was in the right frequency of being able to do this. And as much threat of death as I'm under, as much as everything has been taken from me and torn apart, something told me that reaching out was the right thing to do vibrationally in myself. And that's the only thing I understand. I can't speak to how other people view things, but I knew that I was in the right vibration by reaching out, and other people can too.
I second that. You guys can reach out to me. Hopefully I've shown that and I'm with you. The one thing you say, it's everybody's You kind of lost everybody, but I'm with you all the way. And this is just the start. Of what I'm going to do is we're going to leave it at that for today. And then I'm going to let everybody know there's a lot more to this story. There's a second part, and we're going to get into that maybe tomorrow, maybe later today, depending on how we feel. And what I'm going to say to you is take a few deep breaths. You know, I'm going to go over to Twitch and take some phone calls and see what people are saying. And then I'm going to stay in touch with you the way we are in touch. And we'll see what people are saying right now. And then how things go from there, and just take things one step at a time as we have been. And everybody, you know, this guy is doing the real thing. He's got nothing. And so there's a PayPal link inside the description for this video, okay? And I can't tell you how much your support would be appreciated. I've already, you know, done what I can, you know, what we can, given the limited means we have at our disposal. Unfortunately, you know, that helped tie up some loose ends. But there's a PayPal address in there. It's PayPal. It's paypal.me/veganmikey. PayPal.me/veganmikey. VEGANMIKEY. If you're listening on the podcast, okay. And that's all I'm gonna promote today. So I'm gonna go over to Twitch. Did you have anything you wanted to say before we go? Because we're gonna do another one of these. But did you have anything you wanted to add? I thought you've been really eloquent.
Yeah, the last thing I'll add is that, like he said, this isn't over. We wanted to see how it might go if we come forward, and not only to see what happens in my circumstances, but to see what happens with you guys. And I want to say that anybody who's supporting me, anybody who's supporting him, anybody who's supporting the situation, anybody who's supporting the kids, the real kids that this is happening to, anyone who's supporting them, I'm supporting you, and I'm not going to give up. I'm going to keep going, and there's a lot more that I'm going to be bringing forward. And like I said, it's not about me anymore, and I have a lot more that's going to be it's going to be sacrificed for our cause, a lot more that I'm going to be able to offer. So if I'm able to ask people to support this, then the only thing I can do is support it too. So that's my vow to anybody who's actually caring about this situation and supporting us and what we're trying to accomplish, is that I'm going to give everything I can as well. And I'm going to be there for those people as much as I hope that they're going to be there for us and for exposing this. And that's all for now.
And you better start using Twitter again. I was just thinking about it. You're going to need to be on Twitter so people can hear from you when you want to say something. Do you want me to just give what your Twitter is so people can follow you there?
You said it's still up and it still works?
Yeah, it looks good.
Yeah, it's fine. It's all vegan, Mikey. It's all the same
thing.
thing.
Yep. Go ahead and just go to twitter.com. I'm going to put it in my description right now. Go to twitter.com.
If I get anything on there, I'll use it. If I don't get anything, but yeah, I guess that's an easy way for anybody who needs to tell me something. You can reach out there, and if I do end up receiving anything, I'll start using it again.
Yeah. Well, everybody follow twitter.com/veganmikey, and that gives him a chance to say something. And Isaac, I hope you're listening. Sarah Ruth Ashcraft, I hope you're listening. Fiona, David Schurter, I hope everybody's listening, and we want to make you semi-famous, so it's a lot harder to get rid of you. You know what I mean? So
I guess that's a good point. Yeah.
But
hopefully not infamous.
That's what I've been working on in my, is that the more people know who you are, hopefully the harder it is to do something to you. Okay, so I'm going to leave it.
Let's make it so that no matter what happens, we've made a difference. No matter what happens, at least it won't be in vain. Okay, at least if we do that, we can all look back with a clear conscience.
Amen. All right, I'm going to go over to Twitch. Hey, thanks. I'm going to go over to Twitch. Just stay tuned over there, and I'll be talking to you on where we talk. Okay? All right, man. Take a few deep breaths. Thanks. Okay. All right, guys. share. You got to share this thing. I mean, that's a real accusation of something happening right now. And by the way, InfoWars is in Portland right now for these riots that are probably going on. I'm going to go over to Twitch, okay, which is where I do the show. I did a little pre-show. Now we're going to take phone calls. That's twitch.tv/lifttheveil411. I want this to be the right length so that people can see it. I think it's a little over an hour, so that's perfect to digest this information. There's a lot more information that'll come out on YouTube in our next interview. You can find this after the fact also on Twitch. You'll just go to twitch.tv/lifttheveil411 or download the app and look for Lift the Veil. If you go to my channel and then you go to videos, then you'll see the video with the same title as the YouTube video you're watching right now. You can also find us on podcast at Lift the Veil, wherever podcasts are given away. And if you want to support something today, please support our guest. Please support our guest, which is at paypal.me/veganmikey. Okay, follow him on Twitter too, twitter.com/veganmikey. Show him as much love and support as you can. I mean, I think it's a real thing, and I hope it'll inspire other people to speak out. Okay, for YouTube and going over to Twitch, that is what it is.